Hi, welcome to another episode of the Jim Carrey Project. I am your host, Brian Kondrach, and with me always is...
Carrie Grant.
Yeah, and today we are watching and have just finished watching the Sex and Violence Family Hour from 1983. It was directed by Harvey Frost, starring Jim Carrey, Terry Austin, George Buza. And the tagline for it is, "The Sex and Violence Family Hour is a 1983 sex comedy film with a jumble of sexual skits such as The Big Salami, The Brady Bang, and Leather and Chains." Oh,
I'm just like, thank God it's over.
oh my God. Yeah, first and foremost, it was like an hour of just what the hell is going on here. The entire thing is just a bunch of different sketches. I mean, when they say it was the Sex and Violence Hour, it is.
Yes, it is.
The sex
Okay,
and
so I have a
violence
couple
hour.
questions because again, you don't tell me anything.
No,
I sit down and I'm like surprised every time. And you did it again. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so is this a one-time show or is this is a series?
This was from what I could tell, and there's not much that I could find on the internet. Like if I pull up the IMDb stuff, it's basically a sketch show that was put together for a one-time thing and was played on TV and then probably promptly pulled from TV.
Someone must have watched it before he went on.
I know.
Oh my God. And it aired. I mean,
I could not seem to find where it like originally aired or anything like that. That's the thing, is I think it's either that it looks like it was video straight to video in 1983 from anything that I could find out.
So you think you would rent it?
I think it was probably something that like this group of sketch writers or people wrote and then filmed and somehow found production or found someone to release it. Either that was been through the Canadian group that they were like might have been friends with, or some of the
I
couldn't find anything about it. Like even the Wikipedia was like absolutely not helpful at all. Like I'm trying to see.
Jim, can you explain it to us, please?
I know, right?
Or someone else from the show.
There is no like Wikipedia for it.
Maybe we can track down one of these people one day and be like, what was this?
I don't know. Like if we look at the thing, it's like who's on here? And it's like I've never heard of any of these people. No. I don't even know who the director is. Like it was just a mess. And
So I mean, okay. So you don't know those were my questions. So when we first started, I was like, it seemed like a show. It seemed like a sketch show, like a a dirty Saturday Night Live or whatever that is, or Kids in the Hall or that kind of thing. Yeah. But I wasn't following it early on because it jumped so much. And I guess by the end I realized they were interweaving the same
the narrative.
Sketches.
The narrative is that the two guys that are
that's what it is.
The producers, the developers are running around to the different networks and producers and directors and trying to sell their sex and violence shows to them. Right. So this is all of theirs flipping through the channels and watch this. Right. But the idea that they were all self-aware and then would switch to the sexy interludes between just
also, and even going back before that, so Jim Carrey actually opened the show with his preview of like, you won't like this if
he's the host of the show, like making fun of the what were those shows, the ones where the Twilight Zone kind of thing, and where there's always the host in the fancy leather chair.
Sure. So he was that guy. Like, so that set it up, and then you're right. Then the plot line then was the two guys who were trying to sell all these dirty shows, and so then that kind of made sense. Then after a while, that then each of those like longer sketches were a show they were trying to pitch. Yeah. Interspersed with the singing guy and the lounge.
I think the lounge.
And the singers.
I think the lounge singer was a part of one of the sketches they're trying to sell, or one of the bits they're trying to sell.
Was it only in one of them?
I think it was in 3 of them, wasn't it?
Okay.
There's so much that happened in this show that it was just bouncing around left and right, and it's like, what is happening here? how many times did you just sit there and were like, is it done yet? What am I supposed to be looking at? What am I...
I was just trying to figure... Well, like, for a long time, I felt really stupid because I really was, like, not understanding where it was going and what was happening completely. And then, probably about halfway through, then I got most of it. But then they still throw something random in again. And then, I mean, I kind of got the whole... I don't know what you would call it, like, stripper dancer thing that kind of happens every time.
The interlude.
I don't get it. I don't get why they did it, except they wanted to have a lot of sex in the show.
The sex and violence family.
It didn't. I guess there was like nothing. It wasn't cohesive enough for me to follow. None of it bothered me as far as like being offended by it. I could see that a lot of people probably could be offended by it. I personally wasn't. I just wanted it to make more sense. Like, why?
These guys are trying to make a buck, and these are their terrible shows that they gotta sell. It's like. I don't even know. There's a lot here.
Yes.
Like, just thinking about that, this was made and released in 1983. So, like, half of the jokes that were out there are things that I would never understand what it was. Like, I didn't know, like, some of the references, except a lot of it still seems to be fairly applicable to today's timeline.
Like what?
It's like, there's always trouble in the Middle East when they're doing
the
oil versus
that one. You're right.
The sheik or the oil guy buying up everything left and right. That's always there. Like that's always thing. The president, and we can touch on that one. Jim Carrey does a pretty good impression of Reagan. Is it Reagan?
It was definitely Reagan.
It's supposed
at the end,
to be Reagan.
I didn't think it was Reagan right when he started.
Yeah.
He wasn't obviously Reagan, but then the second time I saw it, he was pretty obviously Reagan.
Which is funny to come and see him do that impression now, where it's still like the beginning stages of his great impression work that we always see and know. Again, the very beginning face at the beginning of the movie, the one where he's the host and he's talking about everything. He's got the eyebrows and the like squeezed face, which is 100% the Grinch.
I was gonna say the Grinch. Okay, I was like, if you're not going with the Grinch, I don't know who that is, because I almost said like that is the Grinch completely. It's totally the Grinch face.
Just add a bunch of green and like some prosthetics, and you've got like the thing. So he's been doing that face his entire career, and then somehow it finally pays off in the later part of his life, where it's like the freaking. Like
almost
one
40
of the,
years later, 35 years
later. Get your time right. But like, it's amazing to see that he's been doing that entire face for like the beginning. And he's one of the top billed characters or actors in this show, but he's only in it like.
Well, and they called him the special guest.
Yeah, he's the host, and then he's. Like, I guess it would be a special guest of, like, Saturday Night Live, where they're the host.
That's why I was wondering if it was a series that was on regularly, and he was not a regular, he was the special guest. Yeah. And so they obviously put him in the sketches and stuff, but he wasn't the normal one. And they even talked about, who wrote that sketch sometimes. Like, I wrote the sketch, or I didn't write the sketch, or this or that, or...
Yeah.
So
it's very meta in itself about, like, we know we're in a terrible, terrible movie or a terrible sketch, and I'm sorry about it, but money!
This is what it is. Yeah. I know. It's really interesting. I'd be really curious to find out what that group was. I mean, it could have been, like just like a sketch comedy troupe or like an improv troupe.
UCB or like Second City or IO or something like that.
Just said, hey, let's make a series. Okay, but then they only got through
one.
It was meant to be a series all along, and Jim Carrey was like someone's friend that came in or whatever.
Different guests throughout the different areas and different shows.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my god.
I mean, did you have a favorite part of it that didn't annoy you?
That didn't annoy me.
Or you enjoyed, or you got...
There's just so much to process right now of just... It really never slowed down for a chance to, like, appreciate what you just saw or what you just read or heard or whatever. Like, and half the jokes... Since we're watching this on YouTube, sound quality is a little terrible. It was a very... Like, somebody recorded this from TV and put it on YouTube. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that I feel like we missed.
Yeah.
And then there was a lot of just terrible, terrible jokes. Like things you could not get away with at all right now. Like even if it didn't go to like...
More than half of it.
It could go on Netflix, but it would be like specifically don't watch this section of Netflix kind of thing.
I mean, unless I guess you're doing it to like, this is how bad it was in the 80s
kind
of thing. Like,
comparison.
This is how bad it, this is where we've come from to like now how it's just totally not acceptable.
So do I have a favorite part of this show? No, I don't.
Okay.
There's parts where I'm like, this is interesting, and I think that what they're doing, I see where they're trying to go on things with it, like the big salami.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say.
It's like I get the character, and I get like, okay, this could be a good bit, but it just was so disgusting at the same time.
So this is what I was gonna say. When the big salami came on, I was like, I get it, and I actually thought it was clever early on. So he was just in the car, and the puns or whatever they were saying was like, it was clever, and it hadn't really gotten dirty or anything yet. And I was like, oh, okay, I kind of like this. And I actually did enjoy that whole one. Up until like probably the very end where the two guys were just gyrating with her talking.
She was so excited that they saved her from they found the guy who was biting kneecaps, sucking kneecaps.
Yeah. Like that part's weird too.
It's just like, and like they're two incredibly horny Italian detectives, and now all they're gonna do is gyrate for the next 2 minutes.
Yeah, which it's still again like didn't offend me, but like it was actually I felt like a pretty thorough sketch. Like I got it from the beginning. Yeah. I followed it. I thought it was clever. Even like two Italian guys gyrating because they're Italian short guys and that's what they do. Yeah. Like kind of makes sense. The whole thing made sense to me.
I'm thinking of it now. It's like another example of that kind of terrible stereotype, and like how easily it can go from one of the best things into one of the worst things. And is a good example of this is the two wild and crazy guys from SNL. It's like they're a stereotypical Eastern European block of like tourists, like dancers stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how is it that two wild and crazy guys got popular, whereas something like the two Italian like detectives is just like, ew, get it out of here.
Yeah.
And now it is way more sexual in this one than they're
the other one was not as sexual, and this one was I thought was actually one of the least sexual ones
until
in there
until the end of it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Yeah, I mean that was I think like that's the one that stood out to me as like like it. I don't know. It was easier for me to follow and
fully fleshed out.
Yeah.
As opposed to the other ones.
There was a beginning, a middle, and end. It made sense to me. Yeah. Like the two girls.
The teenagers.
I think there was a lot of sound issues on that one too because they actually filmed them on the bus at one point and you could hear the bus noises pretty strong. So I missed a lot of what they said there.
Way more.
Like what? I don't know. What were they? I just like their. It was like their little thing, but
they're making jokes and puns, or like trying to make jokes or puns, but they never really landed in my.
And they're like weird high school girls who were overly
sexual high school girls
doing coke,
doing drugs, and like.
But think they're funny.
Yeah, they're the coolest kids in the class, so they can get away with whatever they want to do. Sending guys to jail for. Convincing them to have sex with a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So like the concept of that, I'm just like, okay.
Could this be made today? Hasn't been made? Like, has someone done something similar to this that you can think of? Going to the Lounge Singer reminds me of Connor, our friend Connor's.
Some of it reminded me of Connor and Cassie.
The lounge. The Lounge Singer, what was that character's name? I don't remember what it is now, but it was one of the funniest sketches that I think I've seen Connor do in a long time, where it's like coming up with the motivational lounge singer. And it was
really?
Like, what is this? What is happening here? The other thing is that during those songs, he started singing that I ran over my dog with the mower, and I know that song from the Hash Crew.
Oh, it's like a real song?
We've sung that to other people.
That's
like
funny.
in our
See, I never heard that song, so I kind of thought, I wonder if he's just making that up. But he was using real songs during that bit, so that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there was definitely some parts in there that I felt like I could imagine Connor.
Yeah, some of our friends making these things. Oh my God, what do you do? What were you thinking during the dancing scene? All of the dancing girls.
Well, like you said early on, you're like, I feel like I should be watching this by myself, and it kind of crossed my mind too. I'm like, this is a little uncomfortable watching it with someone else or a friend or anything, but
we're having a project, and it's like we're doing this as a professional project.
What are you making me watch?
We're doing this as a professional project.
Yeah.
So it's like you got you and me, and then Corbin is here. Our sound producer is here. And it's like, thank goodness there's a third.
He was snickering over there a little bit. No, I mean, again, like, I'm not, like, uncomfortable with it, but, and as I got that it was just the bits, then that's totally fine. And it always had the words going across, which I didn't get, again, the first two times.
There's a bunch of jokes that didn't make any sense.
I don't even think I read it the first time. Like, I was just like, okay, there's a girl dancing topless in her lingerie, and I wasn't even reading the bottom part. I think the second time I read part of it, and then afterward,
this is part
the next,
of the thing.
What was it, 5 times more after that. Then I got what it was doing, and it was, there were the little jokes describing the woman there that were funny. Sometimes funny. Sometimes didn't make sense still, but
okay.
Sometimes funny.
I guess I needed to be a teenager in the '83 to understand exactly
well, sometimes they
what
reference
the
a specific person.
Yeah,
we
like, who is that?
I
don't know any of that stuff.
Yeah. So, that was, I mean, if you're going to make a show about sex and violence, like, you put it in there. That's sex.
Yeah.
That's a huge...
I'm a little disappointed in how little Jim Carrey was actually in it, and to be honest, with him being billed as, like, the special guest, but I get where they would do that. And I'm glad that he did not go as sexual or, like, deviant as a lot of the other people did, which makes sense, because it's like... I think at that point in his career, he was still on the coming up, and he might have had the wherewithal to be like, maybe I can't get as far into that. But definitely, like, all the cocaine is being done.
Well, I mean, again, we were still not born or young or young in the 80s.
If this came out in 1983, I would have been 0.
Yeah.
I would have been alive, but not...
I was older than that, but I wouldn't have been watching anything like that.
This is not a part of the...
but I guess that's the big time where everyone kind of just knew people were doing cocaine. Yeah. And it really did make it a really big joke of it, which I'm not sure, do we make as many jokes about cocaine use anymore like that?
I think people still do it, and it's probably a little bit more subtle than it was, but... The joke is in the 80s is that it was everywhere. Like, no matter what you were doing, people were snorting just lines of coke and just a mirror full of it.
Like all over their clothes and all over their face.
I think it's weed and, like, other drugs like that now.
People
like Seth Rogen's movies and stuff, it's all about getting high, and it's like there's drugs and stuff involved in it, but it's usually weed, and that's become the culture that we have now. It's like, cocaine, chill, let's everyone take it easy a little bit.
Right. I know, that was, again, they've just made it, specific to the 80s and that time, and, totally... made light of it in a way that didn't seem, again, offensive and not to me in that part of it. But
I want to see this.
We're just not there
anymore.
Yeah,
it's not a part of who that culture is.
No.
I imagine there's still a lot of it going on.
Yeah.
So, shock factor. What is your take on this one? Were you shocked? How far into it were you shocked, and then you're like, is it going to change, or were you shocked throughout the whole time on this?
No, I wasn't shocked the whole time. Well, you told me the title. I knew the title going in, and then fairly early on, I guess it was probably a couple minutes in before there was a little bit of sex or breath. I think there was breast out pretty early on.
The eyewitness news.
Oh, the eyewitness news is when it was like, all right, there's going to be a lot of there's going to be a lot of boobs in this show. Because if she was just sitting there at the news anchor desk with her boobs out, I was like, okay, there's definitely going to be more of that.
This is happening all over the place.
Yeah. So, I think I got desensitized to it a bit after a while and expected it. And
it almost became shocking when
it was
there wasn't nudity. Like in The Big Salami, the showgirls walking around fully dressed.
That's true.
And it's like she's a showgirl. So it's
Totally
like,
could be
why
topless,
is there not
It's
more
topless
of this stuff?
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Like it was odd not to have it in. Even like that other sketch, it was sort of like a soap opera kind of feel.
Oh, the one towards the end?
Yeah, where they each gave their profile. I actually thought that was really clever, how every time it was somebody's name. The whole show.
Harry, or Harry and Larry and
Christina,
Luigi.
Christina. Yeah, all of them.
It makes it so much easier
Like
for
just
naming
one name.
conventions.
That's it. Just double it. We're done. Like, I actually feel like that was kind of clever. Like, just throw it in there twice.
If I ever get the chance to hang out with Jim Carrey or talk to him, I want to ask him about this movie, or not even not even like let's get into what it was like, but like who were the writers and like how did you get involved with them anyway? Was this something you auditioned for, or were these people that you knew and going into it being like, oh, this is gonna be hilarious?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want to happen from a show like this?
Yeah.
Is this what's gonna make your career? Is this what's like the next step, or like what is it that drove you to be like, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun?
Yeah, I mean, you like to do stuff that's fun. I like to do stuff that's fun and that you don't normally do. You know, like shows that we've both done where you get to be raunchy or dirty or sexual or
Dr. Powerbottom.
Yeah, totally. Just stuff that like is so out there. It's so much fun to do, and I totally get that with this group. Like they look like they were all having fun. They're like, we can't believe we're doing this. We're getting away with this, and it's getting filmed, and obviously got on somewhere because we can see it today. So
it was released via VHS.
I mean, I imagine this group of people again just being, a sketch group that just does all this stuff for fun, just to make each other laugh, and then somehow they were able to get it filmed. Yeah. And I don't know, my guess would be Jim Carrey would like be friends with one of them or jump in with them, on some days or something like that. Maybe not a core member, but like he's like, oh, I like having fun too. And like again, maybe you're right. Maybe he's sort of in the back of his mind like, okay, but I'm not going to go too far, just in case.
He's somehow the most straight man of the entire film in this situation, which is really absurd to see him doing.
I will say he's probably the most talented though too. Like he did things that nobody else could do, like the impressions, just having not even the opening one. I guess it was sort of an impression, but it was also just a very distinct character. I mean, does anyone else seem like a very distinct character to you, except for maybe the Italian guy?
The salami guy was the most distinct, but then the Don or the lounge singer, like they're not like really distinct characters or bits.
Would be that hard to do.
Yeah, a lot of people could be the lounge singer kind of guy. The unknown comic was terrible.
I don't even know who that was. He had a bag on his head.
The jokes was coming.
That could have been Jim Carrey. We don't even know.
It could have been. One of going back to like favorite moments and stuff like that. The party where they're all a bunch of people like in the
I actually liked that one. I really liked that one.
And then they're all like, let's do the whips and chains. Let's see him change his diaper. Bridge? Yeah.
That was so funny. Well, and that one made sense too, because from the very beginning, all the adults were all in the different S&M costumes, but talking about like, what do you do? Like, oh, I'm a realtor. Oh,
I
you
got
should
a
come
good
on.
piece of
I'll help
property.
you. And they were also like the small talk at the party was so like normal with them being in all the S&M costumes that it totally set up the fact then when they were like finally gonna get to the. Okay.
We're so different.
The room is open. Who wants to start? Like, who wants to get whipped? Who wants to get tied up? This and that. And then none of them were willing to go to that next step.
We just want to have a normal evening with our friends.
We just want to play bridge.
Oh, jeez. I feel like I've been in that room before, like in costume parties, friends, and things that I've done with friends here in Houston, and like the parties that I've been to since I've become a running club, like since the hash group.
Okay.
It's like I've been to parties like that where you're in these absurd costumes and wearing like next to nothing.
Yeah.
It's like I've been to like Viking themed parties and stuff like that. And it's like you just become desensitized to it to a point where it's like, well, if everyone's naked, it doesn't even matter anymore. Or if like you're wearing black leather and everyone's wearing fishnets and leather, like, what are we talking about? I'm not gonna say, like, what do you got going on there? Because I am in the same boat where it's like, what are you gonna look at? It's like, it's a thing where it's a lot easier to maintain eye contact when everybody's in that situation compared to like when only one person's in that situation, which is so absurd, but it's like, it's true.
So interesting.
It's so true. And it's like that world is probably the most accurate of the entire like show. It's the weird costume party, bondage party, sex party, whatever it is now like, it's just people hanging out.
I feel like I have more questions for you. I'm not sure
we
I should ask them right now.
We could talk about those later if you want to.
Yeah, but you're right. Like, especially when you already know people, which it seemed like what in the sketch and what you're describing is like you were already friends and you already normally have normal conversations. Yeah. So then why suddenly when you're dressed differently should you be different? Yeah, you still are gonna say, well, how was that run the other day? This or that, or like you're still gonna have your.
You want to see the bruise? It's a lot easier to show you in that situation or something like that. Oh, that's funny. So, on rating this film. Let's do a 1 to 10 scale. Okay. Where do you think it lies on entertainment value or just like general rating?
So that's always hard to do. I actually felt like it was fairly entertaining. It felt a little like I was ready for it to be over by the end.
50
it felt
minutes.
A little long.
Almost a full hour, almost a full 60 minutes.
30 minutes would have been sufficient for me.
40.
But I'd say good. 6 to 7. 6.5, I'd say.
I think they were trying to be the sex and violence family hour. They nailed it. Yes. I think they were like, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it a lot, and everything I say now has this weird innuendo and connotation now.
like they did it all theirs.
They did it all the way. Yeah. So I think they really, if they set out to be the sex and violence family hour, they achieved that goal.
Yes, they did.
Now, could the writing have been better? Could it have been more polished and had like some better jokes? Sure, it's the 80s. Sketch comedy was still fairly new in the 80s, in the early 80s. And like Saturday Night Live, I think it only been around for, I don't even think it had been 10 years. Then I think SNL started in like 75 or like late 70s. Yeah. And even then SNL was like, ran the risk of being pulled off the air every year, every moment. Yeah. So I think that this is like clearly the beginning stages of sketch writing and in our American comedy scene. 80s is cocaine-filled stand-up, dirty stand-up, sex-filled sketch writing, and it's like I think they, I'd give it an 8 of like like they accomplished their goal. The production value was unique and like how do we make these sketches look? The showgirl was in a black room with a chair and her costumes. The salami guy driving and just holding a steering wheel with someone using a windshield wiper to make it look like a car.
Like something that I would have done like with my parents' home video camera at home.
Just cut out a cardboard thing. This is the car now. We're driving. So I mean, I think they nailed it. Acting was sketch.
It was sketch, so it was fine. Yeah.
I think eventually some of the things that we've been in together will surface if our career goes up the way we want it to. Those things will surface, and then we will be like, someone will hopefully have an episode where it's like this Connor side of the universe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Connor and Cassie and all of that stuff. So it's funny to look at it from a new perspective, a perspective of 2019, being like, could you get away with this? The Nazi thing? No. A girl walking around in the Nazi uniforms? Like, Jim Carrey's parts were so straightforward in this that it's hard to talk about him as an actor and as a character in this one, other than he did a really good impression of what was supposed to be Reagan. He did a really good impression of the creepy, like fancy high and tight like host.
The cooking,
and then the cocaine thing was different.
I never got the one where you always did what?
It's so
I don't even know what that sketch was. Like
it was just him.
It was just him going.
I
doing
think
his
he was
thing.
he was in the. I think he might have been a part of the news crew or something. But like it was like
see,
that was fun. Oh, it was a good time.
I missed that.
But yeah, that was it. Like
that's where I feel like I wanted more organization to it. Like help me enjoy it.
Be on
and you're
board
right,
with
it's so
it.
fast, and it's like, and because I didn't know what was coming next, I'm still thinking about what just happened, and then I missed like the next thing, and so that's just what I like.
You want to watch it again?
No.
No, I don't. Well,
another time, baby.
Okay. Well, that's all our time I think we're gonna spend on it. I could spend probably another 20, 30 minutes just talking about just processing each scene through it, but
or the little bits here and there.
But when it comes to Jim Carrey, we've covered what we needed to cover on Jim Carrey stuff. So let's call it a day, and we will get this put up. And next episode that we're going to watch, I think we're going to be watching All in Good Taste. He's got a couple. Jim Carrey had a bunch of things all come out in 1983. I'm not sure the correct order of them. But it's either going to be All in Good Taste or Copper Mountain, depending on which one I can find and how we can get it done. So
interesting.
Thanks for coming.
Everything's been different so far, so I'm sure it'll be different again.
Thanks for coming over and hanging out with us. This is the Jim Carrey Project. Brian Kondrach.
And Carrie Grant.
And special thanks to Corbin Russell, who's been our sound producer today. Couldn't have done it without him. So thank you guys. We'll see you next time.